You always thought being the good daughter made you special, but all it really made you was convenient. You paid the bills, kept quiet, did the work, and still ended up alone. Because deep down, even Dad knew you were never the one worth choosing. She didn't scream it. She didn't cry. She just said it. My mother pouring herself a cup of tea in front of the whole family, like she was reading a weather report. Calm, final. Like my worth had already been weighed, measured, and dismissed. If you've ever carried the weight of everyone else and still got treated like you were disposable, if you believed that being good, being quiet, being loyal would finally make them see you, only to realize they were never looking, then stay. Because this story, it's yours too. The February cold scraped across my cheeks as we stepped up the stone path to my childhood home. Ethan held my hand, his thumb drawing gentle circles across mine. It was supposed to be a calm night, a family dinner, a simple introduction. But the moment the front door opened and Brielle greeted us, arms wide, smiled just a little too bright, my stomach dipped. "Savannah, Ethan, right? You look even better in person." Her voice was syrupy, her eyes scanning him head to toe like a casual shopper admiring merchandise. I let go of his hand only to step in and hug her, stiff. She smelled like vanilla and calculated charm. She always did. "Hey, Brie," I murmured, then stepped aside so Ethan could greet her. He offered a polite handshake. "Wow," Brielle said, ignoring the hand and brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. "You didn't tell me he was tall?" She turned to me, laughing. "Kind of perfect. Must be hard keeping him all to yourself." I laughed too. The fake kind, the one that hides something raw. Ethan smiled, oblivious. Inside, Mom was already at the dining table, adjusting silverware that didn't need adjusting. Margaret Blake, ever the orchestrator of appearances. "You're late," she said without looking up, her voice clipped. "Dinner's getting cold." "It's only 7, Mom," I replied, unzipping my coat. 6:45 is 7 in this house. Ethan gave me a look, eyebrows up, a twitch of amusement at the corner of his mouth. I smiled back, silently warning him, "Don't laugh. Not here." Lily peeked over from the other end of the table, waving timidly. I waved back. She was the only one untouched by this house's sharp edges. Dinner smelled like garlic, rosemary, and unspoken tension. I slid into my seat while Ethan sat beside me across from Brielle. Mom said grace. I watched her hands, manicured, rigid. She led the family like a queen on a crumbling throne, holding it all together with bone-white knuckles. "So," Mom began once the plates were passed around, "Ethan, what do your parents do?" Ethan, ever the diplomat, smiled and replied, "My mom's a high school librarian. Dad's a carpenter, retired now." "A carpenter," Mom echoed, chewing her salad slowly. "Hands-on work. That's nice." "Yeah, he always liked working with his hands. Built our house, actually." Brielle tilted her head, placing a perfectly roasted carrot in her mouth. "Sounds dreamy." I stabbed my steak with too much force. Ethan chuckled softly, misreading the moment. "And this?" he asked, pointing at the mashed potatoes. "These are incredible." "Oh, I made those," Brielle chimed in, eyes lighting up. "Really? You cook?" "Sometimes," she said with a shrug. "Don't let Savannah fool you. She's not the only accomplished woman in the family." Mom smiled approvingly. I felt a cold sweat crawl across the back of my neck. Ethan smiled, complimented the food, and moved on. But Brielle didn't. "He's really sweet," she whispered later, low enough that only I heard. "Are you sure you can keep up with him?" I turned to her, trying to smile, failing miserably. She raised her glass to me in mock cheer. We were only halfway through dinner. After dessert, a tiramisu Mom had conveniently credited to herself, Ethan excused himself to the bathroom. I took the opportunity to help Lily with her coat. Brielle had disappeared into the kitchen. When I went in to grab Ethan's scarf, I caught them. or something close to it. Brielle was standing with her back to the fridge, phone in hand. Ethan stepped out from the pantry, their eyes meeting for just a second too long. She locked her phone with a soft click. He looked away first. "Everything okay?" I asked. Ethan smiled. "Yeah, just looking for napkins." I nodded, but something inside me was already shifting. As we stepped out the door, Mom caught Ethan's arm with surprising speed. She leaned in, whispering something too low for me to hear. He gave her a polite nod, then caught up with me on the front porch. The ride back to his apartment was quiet. Too quiet. He didn't comment on Brielle, or Mom, or anything that had happened. Just kept both hands on the wheel, staring ahead. Then my phone vibrated in my coat pocket. "I hope tonight didn't stress you out. Your family seems intense." Ethan's phone kept buzzing. So did my instincts. The early March chill hadn't quite loosened its grip on Chicago, but Ethan's apartment radiated a quiet warmth. It smelled like fresh coffee and the cinnamon candle I'd bought him last fall. We were wrapped in blankets, Netflix murmuring in the background, his legs tangled with mine on the couch. He laughed at something dumb on the screen, reached for popcorn, and kissed my forehead like everything was fine. But his phone kept buzzing. Twice in 10 minutes. Then again, always face down, always silent. I pretended not to notice, but my eyes flicked toward it each time. He didn't. His hand stayed on me. Or the remote. Never on the phone. That was new. "You okay?" I asked during a lull, careful not to sound accusatory. "Yeah." He smiled. "Just tired. It's been a week." I nodded. "Want me to make tea?" "Please, you're the best." He kissed my cheek, then headed for the shower. Steam was already curling out from under the bathroom door by the time I returned with 2 mugs. His phone buzzed again. This time I didn't flinch. I just stared at it. A little blue light pulsed against the black screen. I hadn't touched his phone in months. No reason to. But suddenly I remembered the passcode was my birthday. 8 digits. Too easy. The screen unlocked with a satisfying click. For a second, I hesitated. Just the home screen. Then I opened messages. It was right there, not even hidden, a thread pinned to the top. Brielle. The most recent message read, "I missed last night." My stomach turned. I scrolled up. A selfie from her in a silk robe. A timestamp, 11:47 p.m. Ethan had claimed he'd fallen asleep early. "One of those long work days," he said. I kept scrolling. Flirty texts, casual innuendos, details that didn't even bother hiding. Then I saw it. "We'll figure it out after I tell her." I didn't blink. I didn't cry. I reached for my phone and snapped screenshots. The entire thread. Every line. Every emoji. Then I opened my private email, attached all images, hit send. Gmail confirmed delivery with a little green check mark. That was all I needed. Outside, I heard the water shut off. His footsteps moved across the floor, the sound of a towel hitting the bathroom counter. I put Ethan's phone back exactly where it had been. Screen down. Then I picked up a pen and sticky note from the kitchen. My hand didn't shake as I wrote 3 words. "Check your messages." I placed it on the coffee table. Simple, elegant, final. I grabbed my coat, slung my bag over one shoulder, and walked to the elevator without a word. The taxi arrived in 5 minutes. I sank into the back seat and pulled the door shut. The building blurred through the rain-dotted window. My phone vibrated. It was Brielle. "Don't be dramatic. You weren't even engaged." She stole my boyfriend. Then she called it a miracle. Rain dripped from the bare branches outside the Blake family home, tapping against the windows like a metronome for tension. I stood at the edge of the living room rug, my coat still clinging to my shoulders. The envelope in my hand was damp, but the pages inside were dry, cold, factual, undeniable. Brielle sat on the couch like a queen on a borrowed throne, hands folded neatly over her lap. Ethan stood behind her, eyes fixed on the floor. Mom paced by the fireplace, arms crossed so tightly it looked painful. I held the printed screenshots up like a torch. You two really didn't even try to hide it. Brielle blinked slowly. Savannah, it wasn't planned. No? I stepped closer. Flirting across the dinner table wasn't planned? Meeting up behind my back? Sending him selfies in my robe? Ethan didn't say a word. Not even a sorry. Brielle's voice softened like she was the one who'd been hurt. It just happened. I didn't mean to fall for him. I looked at Ethan. He met my eyes for half a second, then looked away again. Weak. Spineless. Mom finally spoke. Enough, Savannah. You always overreact. You're dramatic. You're single again. Deal with it. Mom. My voice came out like steel on glass. She's young, she said, waving dismissively at Brielle. Mistakes happen. I nearly laughed. But before I could respond, Brielle reached for Ethan's hand, and then gently placed it over her stomach. It landed like a slap. I'm pregnant, she said softly. The room went still. The rain, the crackling fire, the hum of the old refrigerator, all of it fell away. No. My throat closed. Yes, she whispered. And no, we didn't plan that either. But maybe it's a blessing. A sound escaped behind me. A sharp inhale, wet and violent. Dad. He clutched his chest, stumbling forward from the armchair. Dad? I rushed to him just as he collapsed into Lily's arms. Daniel, Mom shouted, suddenly losing the cold composure she wore like armor. The ambulance took 7 minutes. 7 minutes of chaos. Of hands shaking, of Lily crying, of me holding his pulse at his wrist, while Mom finally called 911. That night, I didn't sleep. None of us did. The next morning, I got a call from Mr. Phelps, the family lawyer. He was already at the hospital. He wants to see you, he said. He asked specifically that you come alone. Dad looked smaller in the hospital bed. Pale. Tubes laced through his arms. But his voice, still sharp, still clear. I made mistakes, he said. Letting your mother run the house. Letting her silence you. I sat beside him, heart in my throat. I want to change a few things in the will, he continued. Before anything gets messier. Okay, I whispered. What do you want me to do? He took my hand. Everything I built, it stays with the one who kept it standing. That's you, Savannah, not the ones who broke it apart. Tears didn't come. Not yet. Only a cold, searing clarity. I nodded. I'll make sure it's done right. A week passed. I got the call at noon. You need to give your share to Brielle, Mom said flatly. For the child. They called it a family discussion, but the only thing on the table was my father's legacy and their greed. The office was far too warm for a spring afternoon. McAdams and Birch prided themselves on discretion, which somehow translated into suffocating silence and the smell of old leather. I sat across from my mother and Brielle at a long mahogany table, under a ceiling light too bright for how dim the mood was. Attorney McAdams adjusted his glasses. We're here to review a voluntary agreement. Nothing binding unless you consent. This is just a preliminary proposal. Mom leaned in before he could continue. Savannah, sweetie, she began, her voice honeyed but rigid. Think of the baby. Your father would have wanted the next generation to have a future. I didn't blink. She'd used that phrase before. Your father would have wanted. It always meant she wanted. Brielle sniffled beside her, dabbing her eyes with the tissue I knew was dry. I didn't ask for this, she whispered. I didn't mean to hurt anyone. I just want us to be a family again. McAdams pushed a document toward me. This is a voluntary renunciation. It proposes a reallocation of certain estate assets to facilitate stability for the unborn child. Stability. That's what they called theft now. I scanned the document slowly. Property titles, trust funds, dividend rights. They wanted everything that bore Dad's name, and mine, handed over with a smile. And they expected me to do it in silence. I looked up. I'll need a full photocopy of the file, all pages. McAdams hesitated. Of course. Mom's lips pressed into a line. Why would you need that? To think, I said simply. But you know what's right, she insisted, folding her arms. This isn't about money, Savannah. It's about family, about peace. Peace. That word coming from her mouth meant surrender. I stood, carefully placing the unsigned form back on the table. You'll get what's fair. Just be ready when the time comes. For the first time, they both fell silent. Even Brielle stopped sniffling. I took the photocopies, tucked them into my folder, and walked out of the room without looking back. Outside, I called my attorney. The signal buzzed, then connected. I need everything digitized and secure, I said. The screenshots, emails, financial records, all of it. If anything happens, I want a timestamp trail. He didn't ask questions, just said, understood. By midnight, the files were in a private vault folder, password protected, with legal encryption, with backups, with traps for anyone foolish enough to try to breach it. And then I clicked send. The email was simple, no signature, no trace. To hr@fortwellinsurance.com. Subject urgent, internal risk review. Body. This man harassed a woman, then lied about paternity for money. You might want to review the ethics clause in your contracts. Attachment. One screenshot, timestamped, from Brielle to Ethan. Just say it's yours. You'll get the insurance payout, and then we're free. Let the dominoes fall. I didn't need revenge. I needed proof, and one unlocked window. The hotel lobby hummed with low jazz and polished indifference. Nobody noticed the woman in the corner sipping decaf with her phone on mute, nor the bellman casually adjusting a camera angle behind the check-in desk. They didn't need to. Every angle was already covered. 3 days earlier, I'd received a spam email laced with a Trojan virus. The subject line was too specific to be random. You should have signed, Savannah. Moments later, a message hit my phone from an unknown number. You still think this is your story to tell? My attorney ran the metadata. The IP traced back to a device registered under Ethan Blake. I knew then. He hadn't just broken hearts. He was trying to break in. So I set the trap. An Instagram story went up that afternoon. A filtered photo of room service and a panoramic view of downtown Chicago. Finally, a weekend to breathe. The caption read, location tagged. I wasn't actually staying in the room. I had checked into a different suite on another floor under an alias. From there, I watched every alert from the hidden camera in room 704, the one I'd baited. At exactly 2:04 a.m., the door to 704 cracked open. No noise, no hesitation. Ethan stepped inside, wearing a cap pulled low and gloves that didn't hide the tension in his hands. He headed straight for the desk drawer, the one I had deliberately left ajar. He pulled out a folder, then reached into his coat and slipped in a USB drive. 10 seconds later, the room lit up blue and red. Hands where I can see them! An officer barked from behind the bathroom door. Another emerged from the closet. Ethan froze, panic blooming across his face like ink in water. The USB was still in his hand when the cuffs clicked into place. I took the elevator down slowly, calm in a way that felt unnatural. The air tasted like closure. When I walked into the room, Ethan saw me and flinched. I tilted my head. You're not even good at hiding your footprints, I said. Next time, don't recycle your own passwords. He tried to say something, stammering, unsure, but the officer cut him off and read him his rights. The police took the USB, the glove prints, the timestamped footage, and the text data. They didn't need me to press charges. The evidence was enough to request a temporary restraining order and open an investigation into digital stalking, identity fraud, and attempted break-in. By noon, Dire Ethan Blake trended online, a thread of screenshots, video clips, and public outrage. Fortwell Insurance released a statement. We have terminated Mr. Blake's employment effective immediately. But I wasn't done yet. I drove straight to my parents' house and rang the bell like I hadn't been erased from their world months ago. Mom opened the door with a face full of strained politeness. I handed her a folded document. "Tell your daughter she'll need a real lawyer." Her fingers trembled as she took the restraining order. Then I turned, walked away, and didn't look back. They wanted me erased from the family. I gave them a press release instead. I stood behind the podium, fingers resting lightly on the edge of the mahogany surface, eyes steady beneath the chandelier's reflection. Cameras flashed, microphones angled forward like vultures drawn to fresh blood. But this time, it wasn't mine. 2 rows back, Lily sat with her hands folded in her lap, her face calm and focused in a way no 11-year-old should have to master. But she did, because this wasn't just my moment. It was hers too. 3 weeks ago, I signed the founding papers. Today, the Daniel Blake Foundation would be real. "My father," I began, voice even but unsmiling, "once told me that legacy isn't about what you leave behind. It's about who you leave it to." I paused as the screen behind me lit up with the scanned image of a letter. Daniel's handwriting, shaky but unmistakable, addressed to me, sealed in a hospital envelope dated March 17th, 2024. It wasn't a love letter. It was a legal confession. And it stated in unambiguous terms that I was the one who supported his business when he fell ill, that I had not only held the house together, but the values too. Beside it, a second document appeared. His will, unchanged from the version that predated Brielle's miracle. Then came the third, a copy of the child's birth certificate. No father listed. The air shifted in the room. "I am not here to file a lawsuit against my sister," I continued, anticipating the headline questions. "I'm here to make clear what my father stood for, and what will not be rewritten in whispers and forged signatures." A low murmur traveled through the reporters. "As of today," I said, "the Daniel Blake Foundation is active. Its mission is to protect women who've been financially manipulated, coerced, or erased by their own families. This is for those told they were too emotional, too much, or simply not enough. We see you. I was you." I turned slightly toward Lily, who gave a tiny nod, eyes glossy. She would serve as the youngest advisory member of the foundation, a symbol that even the youngest among us could choose integrity. Margaret had declined the invitation to attend in person, but her silence was louder than any denial. The documents had been reviewed by independent forensic experts. One signature on the inheritance amendment bore signs of digital tracing. The legal community had questions, and investigators had already begun asking them. As for Brielle, she appeared via live stream for 38 seconds. No makeup, no background filters. Her statement was brief, unsigned, and ended with, "I didn't know how to stop once it started." Ethan's name no longer appeared on company records. His digital footprint was mostly scrubbed, but screen recordings never die. Online forums began circulating a term, the Blake Playbook, a cautionary phrase for coercive opportunism in relationships. The final slide on the screen went black. I stepped back. "Forgiveness isn't forgetting," I said into the quiet. "It's walking away with your power intact." No applause, just silence. Dense, meaningful. That evening, as I removed my blazer and finally let my shoulders relax, my phone buzzed. A new message, this time from a law firm I didn't recognize. "Interested in speaking on a panel about financial abuse?" "We're building a movement." I didn't answer right away. I just stared at the words. Then, slowly, I smiled. The cameras had long stopped flashing, but the ripples had only just begun. Savannah didn't leave the press conference as a woman who simply won. She left as a woman who reclaimed everything they tried to silence. The betrayal had been multi-layered. A stolen partner, a twisted inheritance, a mother's favoritism disguised as civility, and a sister's manipulation thinly veiled as innocence. For months, Savannah had been expected to shrink, to sign, to disappear quietly so others could rewrite her life as they pleased. But she didn't. She chose stillness first, then strategy, and finally, truth. And that truth, backed by handwritten letters, digital timestamps, and silent patterns long ignored, spoke louder than any confrontation ever could. In a world where appearances were worshipped, Savannah learned to weaponize something more enduring: integrity. While others staged performances of victimhood, she curated evidence. While they gossiped in shadows, she turned on the lights. This story was never about revenge for its own sake. It was about refusing to be erased. When Savannah launched the Daniel Blake Foundation, she wasn't seeking applause. She was laying bricks for those who'd been told to stay quiet for the family's sake, those coerced into giving away what was rightfully theirs in the name of peace. Peace shouldn't cost a person their dignity. Family shouldn't feel like blackmail wrapped in politeness. Through every chapter, Savannah shifted, from hesitant daughter to determined witness, then to quiet fighter, and finally, to builder. Not just of a case, of a future. Because justice isn't a moment, it's a movement. And perhaps that's the core of it all, that justice doesn't always arrive with sirens or spotlights. Sometimes it begins with a woman quietly emailing herself screenshots, walking away without a goodbye, or reading her father's words with tears she refuses to shed. Savannah didn't need to destroy her sister to win. She didn't need her mother to apologize to validate her pain. She didn't even need the public to understand the whole story. What she needed, and what she finally claimed, was the right to define herself, on her own terms. Too often, those who hurt others count on silence. They count on the victim being too emotional, too proud, or too tired to fight. They mistake quiet for weakness and compliance for consent. But sometimes, silence is a blueprint. Sometimes it's the calm before the reckoning. In Savannah's silence, she gathered everything they tried to bury. She didn't yell. She signed papers. She filed motions. She turned on recorders. And in doing so, she didn't just protect herself. She created a shield for others. Let this story serve as a mirror and a reminder. When injustice is met with unwavering courage, the final verdict can echo through a lifetime. Forgiveness may one day arrive, but it will be hers to give, not theirs to demand. Meanwhile, accountability will continue its quiet march. Because even if the world forgets names and titles, it remembers what people stood for. Some families teach us how to love. Others teach us how to survive. And a few, like Savannah's, teach us how to rise, rebuild, and then hold the door open for those who come next. No legacy built on lies can outlive the truth. If Savannah's story struck something deep in you, if it reminded you of a time you were overlooked, betrayed, or told to just be quiet for peace's sake, then don't scroll away in silence. This space was built for you. Hit the like button if you've ever been the one holding the family together while everyone else tore it apart. It's a small click, but it says, I see this. I lived this. Subscribe if you believe stories like Savannah's matter. The kind that aren't always told at dinner tables, but linger in every I'm fine that wasn't. We're building a channel where truth isn't filtered, and healing starts with being heard. And drop a comment below. Were you ever made to feel like the problem, just for standing up for yourself? Were you ever asked to forgive before they even said sorry? Your words can help someone else realize they're not alone. This isn't just content. It's connection. It's a place for those who've been erased to finally take up space. So speak. We're not just listening. We're standing with you. Because some stories aren't just stories. They're survival. Elise was never silenced. She just never had anything worth hearing. We gave her chances, but some people mistake being ignored for being oppressed. She wasn't erased. She was irrelevant. Those were my mother's words, spoken right in front of the entire auditorium, while I was still kneeling beneath the stage, taping down cables like my only worth was making sure the wires stayed in place. And what about you? Have you ever felt invisible in your own family? Have you ever been told you were given a chance when every real door was already locked from the inside? If the answer is yes, then stay, because this story is only just beginning.